Welcome to On Texas Football. I'm Bobby Burton. Time for Second Watch with the Rod Babers, brought to you by our friends over at Duck Camp. Rod, couple things you saw that we want to go over today and yesterday's game. Breakdowns and the secondary again, what you saw there, as well as what Texas is doing on offense that is starting to become replicable and repeatable. Something that you really like to see. But let's start on defense, where the Longhorns, again, had some coverage busts in the secondary. What are you seeing that on the second watch that are meaningful things to you?
One of the things I saw that I think should give a lot of Longhorn fans some optimism. Number one, you saw obviously Cade Phillips start the game. So they're going with the younger kind of I think kind of a younger movement here in the secondary. You got a young guy like Grayson Littleton already been starting. I saw a lot more of Jonah Williams. So I think they're going with the youth movement, especially late in the season. But they also played a little more man coverage. It's in Texas usually between 15 to 20% man coverage rate. I would say ballparking it, they were probably close to 35% man coverage rate in this game. If I want to ballpark it, maybe even a little bit higher, depending on how you want to look at some of the split field coverages. But they also played a little bit more press man and press technique at times. And I thought that was important, especially on the boundary side of things with the young Cade Phillips out there. So I liked what I saw from the corners out there. I thought they were a little bit more aggressive. So they made more plays on the football. This is why they were at the catch point more. So you saw 6, I believe, overall PBUs by the DBs. You did have that one interception by Jelani McDonald. And I've been consistent on this. You can get beat. Guys are going to get beat, but I need you to make more plays on the ball. That's what they did in this Arkansas game. And to the credit of the corners, I went and looked at the damage that was done by wide receivers overall. Really, the wide receivers, even though they had 22 targets to wide receivers, only 9 receptions overall, 126 yards, I think, 2 wide receivers. So the wide receiver, a lot of that damage was late in the game too, actually. I would say for the most part, they held some of the wide receivers in check. The damage was done by that Arkansas offense really on the second level, and a lot of it was done by the tight ends. I've been telling you guys about tight ends for the last couple of weeks. Bobby Petrino obviously got that message. Bobby Petrino's tight ends, 14 targets, 9 receptions, 148 yards, over 10 yards per target to tight ends, 7 first downs and touchdowns for a tight end. So 50% of the time you target a tight end, it resulted in a first down or a touchdown. And by the way, that has been the trend for the last 5 games, including the game yesterday. 58% first down touchdown rate when you target a tight end in the last 5 games. You're talking about 72% completion percentage and over 10 yards per target, just the tight ends. They have a tight end problem, and it's mostly because they're targeting linebackers and safeties in coverage, and they're occupying their eyes. Texas is really aggressive stopping the run, so a lot of your RPO play action concepts, when you roll the pocket and move the pocket, you can occupy the eyes of the linebackers, sneak those tight ends out on delayed releases. We saw that a couple of times in this game, and they were able to get some big plays. So most of your coverage busts, I would say all of your coverage busts to me were to tight ends and to running backs. I think I counted 4 coverage busts, but for over 100 yards of production in those coverage busts. And it was the safeties and also the linebackers there. Most of the time, bad eyes, undisciplined eyes. So that's something Texas has to rectify, especially going up against the Aggies this week.
So 100 plus yards of coverage bust when you have 324 yards total offense, that seems like a lot. Are they busting more often than they should, in your opinion? I mean, or is this typical?
I would say that they're specialty plays to target your vulnerabilities. Texas at the linebacker position, especially without Anthony Hill, of course, he's your best second level defender there, and he's your best coverage linebacker too. And without him there, they're really attacking Trey Moore at times. In some of those late releases. I mean, looking at the 1st and 10, they were under center. They did a bootleg rollout, got a 30-yard completion on that one, and that was kind of a delayed release, but the bootleg rollout is what occupied the linebackers on that one. You also had that 2nd and 10, that leak and Texas runs the leak play a lot. It's that delayed release by the tight end. Honestly, that gets linebackers like 80% of the time. I see that all over college football, that delayed release by the tight end. It's going to get the linebackers a lot of the time, unless they're either slow playing it or they just are next level in terms of their processing in their eyes. And then you had the coverage bust, another one to the tight end where you had a 2nd and 10. He was at fullback, and then they actually brought him through the C gap. Brilliant. Texas should steal that play. He was at fullback, and they brought him through the C gap, went right by the linebackers. They never even saw him. That was a 27-yard gain. And then you had the 26-yard gain. The check, by the way, by KJ, the quarterback, the backup quarterback.
Yeah.
Remember he checked to that Mike Washington running back, kind of, I don't know if it was a wheel route out of the backfield, kind of a quick flare route out of the backfield. And Texas blitzed on that one. Not sure which of the safeties for Texas was supposed to pick it up, but both Taft and Jelani McDonald ended up chasing it. He ended up wide open. That was a 3rd and 7 that they had converted. So that was a 4 coverage. I would just say that's a coverage bust. Eyes in the wrong place, guy running wide open. That's different than a guy just getting beat and a great throw and a great route and creating separation. These are guys who just eyes were in the wrong place. And I would say that's, in my opinion, a coverage bust. So Texas still needs to shore up a few things, but those were, I think, specialty plays targeting specific players in specific situations. And Bayo Petrino is one of the best at doing that.
So it sounds like some of it was by design. I mean,
Yeah.
tight end leaks. I mean, Texas runs out against people all the time,
Yes.
and it catches people by surprise. So I get that. Maybe we didn't see as many "quote unquote" true busts like we did the last couple of weeks.
You didn't see him deep routes, and you didn't see him as much for the corners. Corners busting coverage, which usually ends up in big chunk yardage plays downfield. You didn't see any of those from the corners. You just see a couple from the safeties, but they were close to the line of scrimmage. And I think that was kind of the difference in it a little bit too.
That's interesting because that's encouragement. Some encouraging pieces of it, even though Texas got gashed yesterday without a question. You mentioned the run game and run defense, and Texas gives up some in the passing game at times with its linebackers and safeties because of the run game, but it felt like they gave up a lot in the run game as well. What did you see there? Is Arkansas just a good run team? Is it a good run scheme? Did the threat of the running quarterback also play into it? I mean, they were giving up almost 9+ yards on every first down carry throughout the game. So what was it about that, Rod, before we move on to this offense stuff?
I mean, that was discouraging. I mean, the truth is, if Mike Washington doesn't get hurt for that little brief period of time, and then you got Taylor Green, of course, getting hurt and ultimately having to leave the game. And, we have I think it ends up being a fourth quarter shootout between these teams, honestly, because they were targeting specific players on the zone read option plays and being able to get the corner. And it was just, you're right. It's a combination of a guy like Mike Washington, big physical back. We've talked about big physical backs give Texas trouble. They have all year long. And then a true dual threat quarterback, one of the best in the country in Taylor Green. So no Anthony Hill, of course, at that second level. And I do think, they were targeting certain players on that zone read option. And I thought they did a really good job. Taylor Green did a really good job making decisions on, reading that second level player or reading that edge defender and really being able to turn that corner. And so I think that's more I think it's a great run game and variety of run concepts that Arkansas brings to the table that forces you have to defend so much in the running game. And then also Texas missing arguably their best player, best second level defender in Anthony Hill. So I saw those plays too. And honestly, I'm glad that Texas was able to, end up coming out on top. But the truth is, if you have a healthy Taylor Green the entire game with that running ability and a +1 in the running game, I mean, there's a different end result. Texas doesn't dominate the game. I still think they win the game. They don't dominate the game the way they did because they can still control the clock. The key was Texas made them desperate by getting such a big lead. And when you got a big lead, then you force Bayo Petrino to have to abandon the running game in addition to obviously the injuries. Then there was no running game at all. And that was really the key. So the complementary football is what helped Texas in that situation. They're forcing the turnovers, being able to make plays, and also short fields. I mean, I believe there was a 21-yard punt toward the end of the half for Texas. Also helped them put some points on the board. It really was the complementary football that helped Texas win the game, because if Taylor Green's healthy and Mike Washington doesn't go down for a spell, that offense doesn't lose its stride at all, man. It was clicking. You're right, staying ahead of the chains by getting chunk yards in the run game on first down.
Rod, the thing I'm thinking about as you were talking about all of what Arkansas, all the success it was able to have against Texas, I'm wondering what the comparison is to what A&M likes to do versus on offense versus this Texas defense. We'll get to that later in the week, though, for you to pontificate a little bit. First, before we get the offense, I want to talk about Duck Camp, duckcamp.com. Duck Camp makes deep gear for folks who live for being out there, whether that's in a duck blind at sunrise or on the 40 acres for a Saturday kickoff. I had one of the guys at the tailgate tell me that they love Duck Camp. He came up there and he said his wife ended up doing a bunch of stuff with Duck Camp. Born right here in Austin, Duck Camp builds best-in-class hunting and fishing apparel that works just as well for a full day in the field as it does for a long day of tailgating. From sun protection shirts that keep you cool during those early season scorchers to their iconic game series hats that feel like instant classics, Duck Camp gear is ready for football season, hunting season, and every season in between. Get out there, stay out there, and hook them. Shop duckcamp.com at duckcamp.com. On Texas 25 is our special code. This is a news specifically for On Texas football users. Use code ONTexas25 right now for 25% off. That's ONTexas25. You can use it during the Christmas holiday season, so make sure you use it, ONTexas25, for 25% off of Duck Camp. All right, Rod, the offense and Arch Manning was the highlight
Yes,
of the game yesterday. Clearly, everybody's very excited about how the young man is progressing this season, doing a lot of really good things of late. What you said in our pre-show meeting, say this the right way. You said that there was a formula that Texas is using that seems to be repeatable.
Yep.
And you like where this is going a little bit. Explain to people what you mean by that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, we're starting to see the same traits, the offense, the same traits of it week to week, right? I take Georgia out of it. I still think you saw it versus Georgia, but it didn't look the same because Georgia's a different beast. But talking about end of the Mississippi State game, the Vanderbilt game, in this game, we're talking about a high percentage passing game, so quicker passes to get the ball out of Arch's hands. All right, quicker. You still got your downfield shots you'll take for the most part. It's a rhythmic passing game to get the ball out of his hands. And these are easier completions for him too. So we're talking about easier completions for your quarterback. Also, the run game is secondary. It's a pass first offense, and some of those passes are just long handoffs. They're just extensions of the running game because there's such high percentage passes, but still you're leading with the pass. I think leading with what opposing teams fear most about you, which is the matchups on the outside with your wide receivers who are all playing really well. I think that's part of it. Up tempo, especially once you get some momentum, right? You get a first down. Texas usually starts picking that thing up. Even the commentators are having a hard time, keeping up with it, because usually when Texas gets a good play, they go right back to it. I think that's a big part of it. Also, I think one of the things that I'm loving now about it, in addition to, also 11 personnel, they're heavier 11 now than they were than 12 personnel. 12 personnel becoming more situational for Texas, whether they're up big in the game or whether it's red zone. 11 personnel is how you're going to get explosive plays and move the football. And something else that I'm liking about Sark recently, he's stacking concepts better. And what I mean by stacking is, late in the season, everybody knows your staples. You know your staples, right? These are things that you do really well. And pretty much you're going to see these plays every game for these teams, right? And everybody's got these, right? It's not a Texas thing. Everybody's got 4, 5, 6, 7 plays that, man, they're going to see these plays because this is what they run. These are their bread and butter concepts. And what I mean by stacking is you take those staples and then you got to build a counter on top of them. You got to build another concept on top of that concept, because teams are going to be triggered. They're going to be very well prepared to defend those basic staple concepts of yours. So you need something that's going to help you counter and help you be able to take advantage of teams who are trying to take that away. In Texas, the DeAndre Moore 40-something yard touchdown early on in the game, he's running the deep over route, but they fake it. They fake the wide receiver screen to Wingo first with Wingo in motion. that they know that safety. Watching film, you should be, by the way, keying in on Ryan Wingo going, they're going to force feed this dude the football. All right. Especially if you got motion toward that side of the field, all right, all day, every day, Texas going to either the motion guy's going to end up being a lead blocker or they're going to target to the motion, and that's Ryan Wingo. And you saw the safety immediately when he saw Arch Manning go with the pump fake. He did not hesitate. Those 2-3 steps he took forward or hesitating allowed DJ Moore to come right behind him on that deep over route. That starts stacking that concept. Hell, he's run the same damn play to start in a very different presentation, but essentially the same play to start the last 4 games, right? The Ryan Wingo quick screen to the outside, and everybody he's wondering, is he going to do this every game to end the season? He's going to run the same concept, but in a sense, he's almost letting folks know, hey, this is a staple. They're going to have a way to stack that. And they've already done. They got a swing. They got the screen and go, and they got the stalk block and go off of that as well. And another thing that I think a concept that he stacked was the swing screen. This was I think it was an 18-yarder to Ryan Wingo is what it ended up being. But he ends up being a stalk block and go. They have Ryan Niblett in there, and they fake. It's like a multi-motion play where they fake like on the run the swing screen, and Trey Wisner right behind Ryan Niblett, who's kind of he's the guy that's going to be the lead blocker on that swing screen. Fake it to him, and then go right behind him and throw that kind of ends up being like a wheel route almost, because he fakes like he's going to block and he runs the wheel, and they hit him in stride. And that's what I'm talking about stacking plays, because defenders, we're all prepped to take away the staples, and we know what the staples are. But when you can stack those, you can really take a defense by surprise and really put them on their heels. Seeing Sark do a lot of that. I think he was trying to do it with the Cedric Baxter direct snap too that went wrong. I think they were going to try to run like kind of a option play with Arch as the pitch man and just have Cedric Baxter probably end up taking it in. But I think they're just trying to stack popular concepts. When Texas gets down the red zone, Arch going quarterback run game with Arch, whether it be the power or the counter, they coming with it. Direct snap, I think, was a way for him to stack that concept and show the defense something else that could be a tendency breaker with that same concept in mind.
Rod, it feels to me, and I wrote this morning on ontexasfootball.com, that this offense is kind of now a better unit than the defense of late. And I wouldn't say by this wide margin, but it seems like we know now what we're getting out of this offense week to week, and it's improved. And Arch is improving, whereas the defense, I mean, look. The last 3 games, Vanderbilt scored 21 points in the fourth quarter, unabated. Then Georgia scored 21 points in the fourth quarter. And while there were a lot of backups in against Arkansas, Arkansas scored the last 14 points in this game. It feels like the offense has turned it up a notch and started to become and gel into a lot of what we thought that they could be. Not all, because they're not running the football well. But offenses seems to be improving, whereas the defense, whether that's because of personnel issues like Anthony Hill being out, seem to be less reliable. Is that how you see this Texas team right now?
Yeah, you're talking about consistency, right? And you're talking about, the offense earlier in the season, there was no consistency. Game to game, play to play, series to series. You didn't know what to expect from the offense. And now, like you said, the last 3-4 games or so, it feels like the offense, that there is some consistency in the identity of what the offense is. And I'm not sure it's what Sark actually wanted for this offense. I think he probably visualized something else, but that's okay. They still have elite traits as an offense that they can showcase that presents problems to a defense. But defensively now, and I think it's multifactorial, right? I think part of it is, and I said this before the season started, as the season went on, you start to face these quarterbacks who are veterans in their systems, who've been in their systems a little while, right? And I know Taylor Green got knocked out of the game, but Taylor Green was doing pretty good before he got knocked out of the game. And Diego Pavia is a veteran in that system for a while, and now Marcel Reed coming up.
Hey, Blake Shapen was even a very experienced quarterback in that system.
And he's been there and shoot whatever offense forever, right? And I think just how that goes, Bobby. These guys are so comfortable. They know where all the fail safes are. They know where all the escape hatches are in that offense. So it's really hard to get them uncomfortable and rattle a veteran quarterback's cage, especially when, like I said, they are not just a signal caller, pretty much. These guys are basically offensive coordinators in that system. They've been in it for so long. And I think Texas is dealing with that now too. And every game you've played recently, a team has added, they found another vulnerability with the with the defense. Like, see, like we figured out what the vulnerabilities were on offense early on. They don't have a dominant running game. Pass protection is an issue for the offensive line, right? I mean, we knew what and Arch was inconsistent early, right? And now you've got consistency with him. But defense, we just figured out what these flaws are. We just figured out the crossing routes. That was like the Florida game. It was like, oh man, guys don't cover crossing routes really well. Huh, that's interesting. All right. And then what Mississippi State is like, damn, they don't really cover curl routes in the quick game really well either. Huh, interesting. And we feel like, oh, the tight ends went off. And then against Vanderbilt, like, damn, the rollouts and tight ends are giving them quite the problems. And then now in this game, I think what they did really well against Texas was they really did use the tight ends and use them in a way when the linebackers were occupied. Right, to kind of marry the run game and the pass game really well with those tight ends. And I think that's what the Aggies are going to be able to do really well. They can marry those concepts because you have to be able to defend that run game. You got to go all in to defend that running game. So that means all they need is a linebacker's eyes to be occupied or a step behind or that safety to come down, fast flow downhill, and they can pop some big things over the top. So I just think it's because the defense has been exposed recently little by little, and now there's a blueprint. There's just a straight up blueprint about if you don't do these 3-4 things to this Texas defense, you don't move the pocket, if you don't throw to the tight ends, if you're not throwing crossing routes and curl routes, it's like, have you been watching the film? And Bobby Petrino clearly watched the film because he was like, you know what? My tight ends can carry the passing game. I don't really need my wide receivers to carry it. It's exactly what they did. So I think that's more with it. We just figured out what the flaws are with the defense, and the Aggies are going to be in my opinion, the toughest test potentially for them because they're so well rounded. I mean, Ohio State was a good test too, but Georgia was a good test. But Ohio State, their quarterback was young and inexperienced, so they didn't put a lot on his plate. They'll put more on Marcel Reed's plate just because they feel like this point in the season he's experienced and he's tried, he's true, and he's been tested already. And like I said, they're a little bit more well-rounded. They don't have the wide receivers Ohio State do, but their running game is probably better overall because of the plus one and the running backs.
Yeah, no doubt. It's going to be a tough assignment for the Texas defense for sure. Aggies an explosive offense, one of, if not the very best in the SEC at the very least, and one of the best in the country as well. I just think as we look at it all together, the offense is making strides right now. And when I go back to the start of this year and what I thought this would look like, Rod, this is kind of where I thought the offense was headed. Maybe 3 or 4 games earlier, by the way.
Yeah.
So that when they went into Georgia, they would have like 3 or 4 of these type of games behind them and not just 1.5 like they did against Mississippi State and Vanderbilt, right?
Yeah.
But I do think that there's some ways that they can work on the Aggies in particular. The Aggie defense is susceptible. I mean, this Arkansas team scored 42 against the Aggies. Don't forget that. So there's some elements there. We'll talk about it all this week, but thank you for doing the rewatch, Rod. Thank you also to duckcamp.com. Again, if you get a chance, make sure you go check out the clothing over at duckcamp.com. Use code ONTEXAS25 for 25% off. This is a great Christmas deal. Go out there, check it out. Christmas right now, just around the corner. Duck Camp makes gear for folks who live for being out there, whether that's in a duck blind at sunrise or on the 40 acres for a Saturday kickoff. Born in Austin, Duck Camp builds best-in-class hunting and fishing apparel that works just as well for a day in the field as it does for a long day of tailgating. Get out there, stay out there, and hook them. Shop Duck Camp at duckcamp.com. And remember, use that code OTF25 for 25% off. All right, Rod B., I think that's going to do it for today's Second Watch with Rod Babers. We'll see you again later tonight. You'll be on the live stream with Jerry Hamilton taking questions. For Rod Babers, I'm Bobby Burton. Thanks also to our not only to our sponsor, Duck Camp, but also Matt Hutchison behind the scenes. You guys have a good day. Hook 'em horns.
Hook 'em.